a song we sing feels the way we die. You can make the mountains ring, or make the angels cry. Though the bird is on the wing, and you may not know why. Come on, people now, smile on your brother, everybody get together, try to love.
What Gust is this? 176. You should have. Okay. Hello. Welcome. Good evening, storied people of Houston. We are so excited to have you here tonight. This is Gust 176. Woo! 176. All right, so who's never been to a grown-up story time? Awesome, yeah.
Quick, give me a woo if you're here from Reddit. I will. Okay, very good. Okay, I was just trying to test the thing. We're trying to advertise on multiple platforms, y'all. So this is my survey.
Gus is multi-platform, y'all. All right. So, Grown Up Story Time is a lovely Houston tradition where anyone can submit a story. So you can submit a story, you can submit a story, you can submit a story. And then us conniving producers, which is John Abad back there, Emily, who will be reading tonight, Blair, and myself, we will connive the story over to...
Myself, Amanda.
Oh, yes, and myself, Amanda. My name is Amanda. We will pair the story up with a reader, and a reader that we think will love the story, just like you love your story. And we get to see theatrical magic as they come up here and read it for us at the show, like tonight. And
Yeah. And so because this is, in fact, a live theater event happening in a rock club, a couple things to notice is we can definitely hear you when you make noise out there because there's not loud bands up here to drown you out. So if you have things to say, conversations to have, a call to take, there's a whole patio outside. It's just for you. Very nice weather, in fact. It's also the direction of the bathroom. So if you are requiring facilities, you're just going to head as inconspicuously as possible that way, and you'll find everything that you need, except unless you're looking for a bar, because that's where the bar is, and you may absolutely order things during the event. Just try to be, again, it's live theater. You get it. Yeah, we got more things to say?
yeah, we got more things to say. So I'm up here yada about submitting a story. You're like, how do I do that? Well, on the program, on the back, there is an email that you can email your story to, and then we will read it. And there's also a due date for next month's show, which is December 3rd is the due date for the stories. And if you're like, I kind of want to see if I can do this reading thing, well, on the 3rd, there will also be a reading party that you can join. So if you look out on Instagram, you'll see where that is. And we'll do a table read of the stories that get submitted. And that's a great way for us to check out your voice. Or if you've been before, you're totally welcome back. You don't have to just be a new reader. But yeah, we'll be doing that again in December. And that's a great way to get into the circuit of readers.
And then also on the back of that program, you'll notice we've got some notes from friends, things that are happening around town. I will just give a special shout out. There is going to be a live album recording happening here Saturday night for Christopher Seymour and the Western Cosplay. So if you've ever done Horny Tonk after Grown Up Storytime, which you can still do, there's a whole boot scoot situation happening at Big Top the entire time we're doing Grown Up Storytime, and it continues after the story time is over. So you may boot and scoot your way around, but also this Saturday, the band that usually like makes that a lively thing, they're doing a live album recording here, and it'd be cool if you could come and be an audience member. Is that all the things we have for all the things? Oh, the mic demonstration by Amanda Shea.
Oh, it's by me. That's me. Okay, so this is the mic, and so for you readers and hosts out there, this is actually my first time doing this. So let's see how this goes. All right, so adjusting the mic. We are all of different heights, and we are. Yeah. Am I doing this right? This seems wrong.
All right. Oh, okay. I'm tapping in.
This is now a two-person demonstration.
Okay, so that's interesting.
Yes.
Just move it up and down.
It's gonna be okay.
You know what? It is going to be okay because no matter what, we do have a hostess with the mostest who I think we should bring up on stage right now, and he will. I know he knows his way around a mic stand. I don't know why that is so. I'm going to cringe now. Okay, hello. Let's bring up to the stage Greg Cody. Woo!
Thank you. Truly an honor to be here. Gust is one of my favorite things about this city, and I am just unbelievably delighted to be hosting, so thank you all. The world is full of chaos in this moment and at all moments, and your personal chaos led you here tonight, and I'm so happy about that. I'm so glad you're here. It's so important that you're here. So thank you all for being here. Like I said, I love Gust. I love Grown Up Storytime. I've been a fan for a long time. I've been able to read before. This is my first time hosting, so please be warm and welcoming. But thank you. One of the number one things I hear when I like share things about Gust on the internet is, I've always had ideas for stories, and I've always had thoughts about, want to do, but it's never like long enough, or I don't ever feel like it's appropriate. So when I was finally given the opportunity to host, my favorite Gusts are the Gusts that have just endless amounts of story, just crazy stories. We have to take an intermission. Those are my favorite Gusts. So what I decided to do was, in the tradition of the two-sentence horror story or the two-sentence fantasy story, I put out a request for some two-sentence Gust submissions. So throughout the night, not only are you getting the 7 incredible stories that we have here by these writers and read by these incredible readers, I'll also be sharing with you some really, sometimes really heartfelt, sometimes absolutely insane, just two-sentence short Gust submissions. Would you like to hear a couple of the ones that I got? Fantastic. Okay, this is one of my favorites right here. I'm going to do 2 right here. I am going to keep them anonymous. Some of my friends who sent them to me are here in this room. Don't worry, I'm not going to shout you out. But it is not my fault if when I read your story you go, ooh, and everybody knows that it's you. That's on you, and that's not my fault. So, our first micro submission. One time, a female janitor told me I had pretty eyes and asked if she could have them. I told her no. I was still using them. Round of applause for that story, please. Thank you. I'm going to do one more, and then I'm going to bring up our first person. I will never do one of those DNA test kits because I'm pretty sure I have a secret brother, and I don't want him to find me. Yeah, it's good shit. I know a lot about some of my friends that I did not know before because I just did the regular submission thing, not the secret one, so I have deep lore on a lot of people that I've known for decades. It's very exciting. Speaking of known for a long time, both the writer and the reader of this story are close friends of mine. I am so, as I said, honored to introduce these. We have a wonderful story called A Field Guide, which is written by one of the best to ever do it, Brendan Bork-Shiel, and read by one of the greatest voices in this metro area, Andrew Love. Please welcome Andrew to the stage.
Are y'all ready? 10 years ago, I got hired as a teaching artist in playwriting for a big local theater that we'll call the Sally Theater. I got this job because the previous teaching artist, quote, left the city suddenly and permanently for health reasons. That happens in this line of work. It's actually a big part of how people break into the business. And in case I ever leave in the same deranged fashion, I want my replacement to have a training guide. So here it is. Congratulations. Welcome to the Sally Theater. Sort of. Your work will almost never happen in the actual theater building, and most of the people there will have no idea who you are, but still, welcome to the team. Your job will be to represent Sally Theater in the community by traveling to different high schools across Houston and helping students write 10-minute plays. There are mainly two kinds of schools you'll visit: very rich schools and very poor ones, often in the same day. I once spent the morning at a school where my student had just gotten her first car, a Mercedes. And then the afternoon at a school where my student brought her baby into class with her. I once taught at a school where my student's mom had just been deported, followed by a school where my student's dad had helped pass the laws that got her deported. All that to say, brace yourself for the emotional whiplash that comes with witnessing these disparities. Once you get to your school, tell the students a little bit about yourself and take the time to learn their names. Read the room and make a guess about whether this is the kind of school where they share pronouns, and pray that you guessed correctly. Next, you're supposed to tell them a little bit about Sally Theater, like how it was a regional Tony Award winning theater. If that's not plain, tell them about the murder that happened there in the 1980s. Also, maybe tell them how serial killer Robert Durst donated enough money to the theater that they used to have an audience seat with his name on it, until HBO's The Jinx came out and that seat quietly disappeared. Don't rush through the introduction. This is where you get a clear idea of what you're in for. Speaking of which, you might be wondering what that is. So basically, here's what you'll be doing over the next 8 to 12 class days. And the first couple of days, you teach them about the basic mechanics of playwriting and story structure. Foster a conversational feel. Stay open to tangents because they may turn out to be relevant. I once paused a lesson on brainstorming because some kid randomly asked what the Stonewall riots were. Now, we had the extra time for me to answer this, and I try to always cater to the interest in the room, but here's the problem. I don't know if you keep up with the news on book bans or state curriculum mandates, but talking about the history of gay rights in a Texas public school is not the safest career move. Honestly, talking about history in any kind of accurate or comprehensive way is kind of ill-advised. This is the point in the guide where I introduce what I call the Socrates paradox, which states that the better you are at teaching, the more likely you are to get in trouble for it. Socrates, the so-called first teacher, was said to be an absolute paragon of pedagogy. I had to look up how to say that. And was famously sentenced to death for corrupting the youth. So as a teacher, every day you have to make a call about how you'll play it if something like this comes up. Will you risk going full Socrates? Will you go the opposite but self-preserving route and be part of the censorship apparatus? Or will you land somewhere in the uncomfortable middle? On this day, I was too tired to be careful, so I went full Socrates. I told the whole story of Stonewall. Eventually, I got to this part about two guys from Stonewall who were almost arrested, but managed to get away. Only problem being they were handcuffed together. Luckily, they were in New York City's neighborhood, so they just found a leather bar where a dominatrix, of course, had a pair of handcuff keys and set them free. I just mentioned this as a colorful story, but then I realized we could use that as the basis for a brainstorming exercise. So for the next 20 minutes, we fleshed out the characters and a plot for a play based on this story. But right as we were getting to the part where the dominatrix, an assistant principal, walked in, and I made a hard pivot to reciting a monologue from A Midsummer Night's Dream, and then asking the students questions about it, like we were in a deep Shakespeare lecture. The kids all rolled with it. I'm sure it would have been a good scene if an audience had been there. I told them this afterwards, how this moment had conflict and stakes and all the basic structural pillars of good playwriting. I guess, for the purposes of this guide, the takeaway here is sometimes you will teach the lesson and sometimes you will become the lesson. Anyway, after a couple of days of teaching the basics and reading some sample plays, it's time for them to start writing their own plays. Playwriting is not a very teachable skill. People mainly learn it by doing, but most people won't even try to do it unless they have a semi-compelling reason. You are the reason. So just walk around from student to student. If they've got it under control, you give a thumbs up and keep walking. If they need help, you help. Now, there are a couple of main types of student plays that you'll see over and over. You're going to see a lot of plays where everyone dies. It may alarm you at first, I promise. It's normal. A basic creative tenet for most young writers seems to be, when in doubt, kill everyone. Another reason for all the murdering you'll see is that there's this 10-minute play contest called Enough! Plays to End Gun Violence. It is a $500 cash prize. And I'm not sure if this contest has lowered the rate of gun violence, but it has caused the rate of gun violence in student plays to skyrocket. One time, one of my students decided to go for it. So he wrote a play about a lockdown during a school shooting. We were reading the play when a lockdown actually happened. So we were all sitting under tables in the dark, and one kid suggested, just in case this wasn't a drill, that we all go around and whisper our last words. Then, after it was over, the kid who was writing the lockdown play actually used some of his classmates' would-be last words in his play. So, all in all, it was one of the more fucked up but creatively fruitful workshops I've ever done. You will also see a lot of plays about whatever timely topic they're not supposed to talk about in school. So like in the past month, I've gotten 3 plays about Hawk Tua Girl and Diddy. But by far, the most common type of play you'll see is the one that doesn't get finished or even started. This is because playwriting is hard and also just an objectively weird thing to start doing in this day and age. It's a dying art form that offers few rewards. Case in point, you, right now, doing this job with no benefits for people who mostly don't care. So never forget, not wanting to write a play is a highly rational position. What you are asking of them is not rational. And look, in case you're worried that, like, the Sally Theater is gonna fire you if you don't write these plays, I'll level with you. Your value to Sally Theater is as a data point in their grant proposals. The work you and a couple dozen other teaching artists do will be aggregated into a few sentences of grant reporting, where they basically say, we served 10,000 students in the community, so give us money, please. And then that money will be funneled into the productions on their main stage. So never forget what this is all for. Funding really cool lighting and set designs that will make a bunch of people happy, including famous serial killer Robert Durst. There is one other important service you provide. Occasionally, you will run into a student who actually cares deeply that you're there. This student wants to work in theater when they grow up. Now, I know what you're thinking. You have to stop them before it's too late. But be honest. Could anyone have stopped you? No. So, since there's no stopping them, your job is to tell them how to do this job as safely as possible. It's harm reduction that might be adding years to their life. I know this job sounds strange, and it's not built for lifers. The hourly rate is good, but you won't get enough hours to pay your bills, and you won't have the flexibility to take on other jobs. Most of your fellow teaching artists will eventually switch to a more full-time teaching gig or leave theater for a more stable industry. And of course, a few will steal away in the middle of the night for health reasons. This is normal. But if you do feel the urge to flee, try and leave behind a guide for your replacement. Tell them what they're in for, the bad and the good, and see if that doesn't stall your urge to run for just a little longer.
Another round of applause for Andrew Love, please. And please don't forget, just a quick plug, the Sally Theater is currently offering the Schmishmishmerrill. So if you guys are into that, get out there for it. I love that story. I love those people. So this is all really good. Would you guys like to hear another couple 2-sentence submissions? Okay. One summer in the early aughts, I volunteered at the Children's Museum when I was a teen. I remember there was a time where I was braiding my hair because I was bored, when a construction worker came up to me and asked if I needed some help, then proceeded to braid my hair for me, and then walked away. Round of applause for that story, please. Thank you. All right, one more. This is a really simple one, but I think it's really powerful. Once I thought I was being followed. I was wrong. It's incredible. That's all you really need. Round of applause for that one as well. It's really good. Succinct, powerful. We have plenty more stories to come for you. I'll be saying more things, but I want to get to our next story because I'm a big fan of all the... You'll notice there's a theme here. I like a lot of people, and most of them are here in this room in this moment, so shouts out to all of you. So this story is called Not a Big Fan of Last of the Mohicans. It is written by incredible director Kyle Colby-Jones and read by Grown Up Storytime's own Emily Hines. Please welcome to the stage.
Hello. Thanks for having me here tonight. It's like I've never done this before. Okay, can everyone hear me okay? All right. Not a big fan of Last of the Mohicans. I picked up Greg and White Mike at 11 a.m. The movie didn't start until 11:50, so we had plenty of time. It was a Saturday, the morning after the big premiere of Last of the Mohicans. Daniel Day-Lewis was coming off his Oscar for My Left Foot, bringing us the grand cinematic version of the story we had all read back in 10th grade. The entire country was kind of weirdly excited about it. Well, let's get in line, I said, opening the car door. Hang on, came a voice from the back seat. Greg reached into his backpack and pulled 3 bottles of Mad Dog 2020, the Orange Jubilee. Now, for those lucky enough not to know about this unfortunate beverage, MD 2020 is labeled an American fortified wine? Produced by Mogan David, the concoction boasts 20 exciting ounces of 20% rocket fuel. Perfect for a matinee viewing of American fortified classic Last of the Mohicans. "Aw, yeah," came a cheer from White Mike. They quickly cracked open 2 bottles and began to chug. While chugging, Greg held out the 3rd bottle and tilted it towards me. He raised his eyebrows and grunted. No thanks. We need to get in line so we can all sit together. Greg burped and shuddered. The Mad Dog 2020 was trying to warn him, but Greg wasn't listening. I huffed and tossed Greg the keys. Here, I'll go wait in the damn line. Lock up and find me when you two dummies are done. 5 minutes until showtime later, I was storming across the asphalt. I found them both now in the back seat, finishing off the third bottle. Come on, you dipshits, it's about to start. I held up the 3 tickets and pointed at them with my middle finger. Oh, dude, bro, dude, you're the best. We'll pay you back, bro, dude. We skipped the mob at concessions and shot towards Theater 4 to stake our claim. We found a sweet trio on the right-hand side about halfway down. I remained with the seats while the 2 dipshits were delegated to concession and urination duty. I asked for Reese's Pieces and a Coke. We would all share a big old popcorn. The coming attractions began. Wayne's World, Unforgiven, Jurassic Park. It wasn't until A Few Good Men that Greg and White Mike finally made their way back into the theater, and it was no secret. Everyone was suddenly aware of their presence. They had come back in the wrong entrance, somehow arguing and giggling at the same time. I jumped up and kind of waved my arms and ducked at the same time. It didn't work. Luckily, they started to quietly, loudly whisper my name, Kyle! Kyle Jones! I waved my arms more annoyedly. It caught White Mike's attention. Ah, it's KJ. Check it out. He's right there, dipshit. I flopped back into my seat as tiny as possible. The Mad Dog 2020 effects had begun. As Greg and White Mike chose not to simply go back up the ramp and back down the correct aisle, no, they thought it best to bumble and stumble and drop things and shit and giggle and piss off everybody on row 6. I jumped up and I ushered them to our seats. I sat on the aisle, Greg immediately to my right, and White Mike sat next to some poor woman who probably tells her own version of this story. Greg wasted no time and sorted out the concessions. Here you go, my liege, just as ordered. He gave me a Sprite, a Kit Kat bar, and a jumbo hot dog. I took it as a win. And to their credit, they did remember the popcorn. They had also procured cheesy nachos, a couple of slushies, Skittles, and a giant pickle. The film opens with title cards, setting up the mid-18th century landscape as the tensions of war clash with a dying breed of native peoples. So naturally, my companions felt that they should heckle. Whatever! That dude's a total douche! Douchey McDoucherson! I really tried to control them, but go Mohicans! Down with Whitey! I got in their faces and whisper screamed at them to shut up, but it was like I wasn't even there. Kick their ass, Danny D. Get you some of that Madeline Stowe action. Some of that frontier poontang. Yow! Quickly, the rest of the theater was shooting us looks and shushing with violent fervor. The woman on the other side of White Mike shook her head and looked at me to do something. After a quick shrug of helplessness, I grabbed them both. I screamed, "You gotta chill! We're gonna get kicked out!" Incredibly, this appeared to sink home. They started looking around to see if anybody was looking at them. Everyone was looking at them. They shriveled into their seats and passed me the popcorn. I grabbed an angry handful. 9 seconds later, the big old popcorn tub was yanked away. White Mike had reached over Greg, and his elbow caught the armrest, dumping half of the buttery bucket into Greg's lap. Shit, dude. Greg took a handful of greased popcorn and just smashed it into White Mike's face, who returned fire by slapping Greg in the face with the big pickle. Before long, they were shoving and smacking each other, throwing food and cussing at each other, all while giggling like baby hyenas. The woman next to them got caught in the crossfire and she stood up. She shuffled past them and I popped up to let her out. No doubt she was headed to find an usher or a manager or a fire hose to deal with these two dipshits. I stood there a moment watching the feral monkeys douse each other in nachos and popcorn, and then mustard, and then my hot dog, and then a cherry cola slushie, and then it hit me. I wasn't going to get kicked out of the theater because of these dummies. I grabbed my Sprite, and I walked to a single seat back 6 or 7 rows. Now, unencumbered by all of the fortified wine interference, I could enjoy Daniel Day-Lewis and his flowing locks in full widescreen brilliance. The Mohican tribe was breaking bread with Natty Bumpo, a.k.a. Danny D. They were establishing a cooperative and respectful relationship between 2 completely foreign cultures. And then I found myself transfixed by the silhouette of popcorn and chips flying through the air. The very moment Magua showed his true feelings and animosities toward the Anglo incursions, the fray between my 2 less than lucid friends reached its buttery crescendo, and then everything stopped. Greg stood up and started wobbling back towards me. Oh, crap. I tried to hide by taking a big swig of Sprite, but it was too late. Greg was looming over me. He was a mess. He had nacho cheese all over his face, with popcorn and chips and candy and jalapenos stuck to it. I need some money, he said. We ran out of food. Hell no, I said. $10. No, just $10. You dumbasses ran out of food because you threw it all over each other. Deal with it. I'm not giving you shit. Greg glared down at me with weaponized, fruit-flavored, fortified rage. He whirled around, raised his arms into the air, and made an announcement to the fine folks of theater number 4. Kyle Jones, if you do not give me $10, then I'm going to grab your dick in front of everyone in this theater. $10 later, Greg was running out the back door. He would never return. In the end, Danny D and everybody else in the film were ready to die for Madeline Stowe. Then Magua did Uncas dirty. The little sister jumped off a cliff, and then my boy Chingachgook went all Mohican on Magua's ass. Roll credits. I waited for the theater to thin out, and I never saw White Mike leave. Quite easily, I found him slunk down and passed out in his seat, surrounded by absolute chaos. I shook him awake and sloughed him off to the car, where I piled him into the passenger seat, and then I headed back to look for Greg. I spotted the ticket taker. Excuse me, I'm looking for a friend of mine. You mean the guy with cheese and popcorn and shit all over his face? Naturally, he had been kicked out the moment he walked into the lobby looking all crazy. Plus, an infuriated woman was pointing at him. Now, this was the time before cell phones, so the search began. I went through all the other shops in the strip center, and eventually I made the executive, sober, consciously irritated decision that I must leave Greg behind. But before ditching my wingman, I felt I should at least call his girlfriend, Christy, and let her know. I pulled out a magic quarter and plunked it into a magic payphone. Ring, ring. Hey, I'm sorry, Christy, it's Kyle. I just wanted you to know that nobody can find Greg, or whatever. He sort of took off and shit. I mean, we're all looking for him, but we don't really know where he is right now. But don't worry, Christy, I'm sure we'll find him. I'm sure he's not dead or anything. He'll be fine. What? Greg's here with me. Huh? Christy continued, what were you guys doing? He showed up banging on the door about an hour ago. He was all sweaty and covered in cheese and popcorn and shit. He just barged in and said, I ran the whole way, and then passed out in the bathtub. He's in there now. A few days later, after Greg sobered up, we were able to piece together his journey. After being kicked out, he just immediately started running. The trek was no small jaunt either, about 5 miles, including a highway and a river. He told us he was driven by the power of love. I can only assume the same love that Long Rifle, Danny D, had shown for Madeline Stowe. In fact, as Greg ran to his beloved, he kept calling out her name, Christy, I will find you, no matter what occurs. To be honest, I would have paid anything to see that. My good buddy running and screaming down the interstate feeder, coated in a slather of his sins, sweating out the rancid toxins of orange jubilee. But no, I was watching some dumb movie. Thank you.
Keep it going for Emily and Kyle. That was incredible. Do you guys remember when you were in grade school and you'd be doing word problems and then there'd be someone with your name in the word problem and you'd be like, oh, I do have 4 watermelons or whatever it was. I promise I'm way better behaved in films than that Greg was, just for the record. Yeah, that's a shame. I've never seen Last of the Mohicans. Should I watch it? Got a clear no from that side of the stage, so I'm going to go with a no on that one. All right, I got 2 more really, really, really good stories. While I'm not giving a name for this one, it is an important piece of context that the person writing this is and has been for a very long time a lesbian. It's important. My ex, who now has a husband, broke up with me because I used money she gave me for bills to buy mall sushi. Round of applause for that story, please. This one is deeply powerful, and I'm going to just do a general trigger warning for gross. At 33, she knew her Jesus year would be great. Alas, she shit her pants, and it burnt her vagina. Isn't that fucked up? I know so much about people close to me now. It's really incredible what people will send you on the internet. Speaking of the internet, please make sure you go follow Grown Up Storytime. It's a wonderful place to do. Good plug. They also have merch. Did you guys talk about the merch? Did I already do that part? There's merch. Get the merch. There's shirts. There's a bag. There's stickers. It's good stuff. Come get merch. And we're gonna move right along to a really beautiful story. We're getting into more of the. We've had a lot of comedy so far. It's really good, but one of the other really beautiful things about Grown Up Storytime is that it's an opportunity for you to explore a lot of different things. And so we're going to explore some of those things right now with a beautiful story by Andrew Kozma, read by Ann Christensen. It is a wonderful story called It's Such a Small Thing. Please welcome Ann to the stage.
Okay, great. Hi. It's the light is in my eyes, and I'm happy to say so. I've known Andrew for many years, and I'm really honored to read his story. Mike, okay? Oh, first time. First time reader. Right up in your face. Put it like that? First time caller, or whatever. Thank you. Okay, it's called It's Such a Small Thing. Last week I learned that my dad's toes were turning black right before he died. It's such a small thing. I'd seen my dad when he was on the heart and lung machine. He had Vaseline covering his eyes to prevent them from drying out. His skin was yellow. His body was puffy and swollen. The blood going in and out of his veins cycled through plastic tubes, purple like a bruise. There was a smell in that room that I won't ever forget, even if I can't describe it properly. A mix of antiseptic and sweat and the sweetness of rot. This is the last memory I have of my dad before he died. In August of that year, he and my mom had dropped me off at my MFA program in Florida. A few weeks later, my dad fainted walking down the stairs. Less than a month after that, he was dead. All that time, after the sickness first made itself known, until the heart transplant that failed to save him, I didn't see him. That was me? Sorry. I didn't see him until that time in intensive care when he was already in a coma he'd never wake from. That memory stays with me. The smell so sickening. I couldn't stand to be in the room with him. Only one person was allowed, so I let my mom and brother take my time. I thought I knew everything about the body that I didn't want to remember, that last memory I would have had of my dad. But then my brother mentioned the blackening toes, the toes rotting from the inside like grapes on the vine, toes blackening like the peels of 2 ripe bananas. Those toes are part of my brother's memory, not mine, and I don't know why. If I miss those dying toes, what else did I miss? It's such a small thing. Toes are such a small part of the body. They are the least important symptom of my dad's dying body. But I didn't notice them, or I didn't remember them, and I don't know which is worse. I don't know why this new detail hit me so hard. Shock, just plain shock. Like I'd been lying to myself all these years. When I first started writing this essay, I was trying to be funny. It was a joke. My dad's been dead for 22 years. He died when I was 26. That means I've almost been alive without my dad as long as I've been with him. Does it make it funny if I tell you I went to Hooters when I learned that he was dying? My mom called to tell me they were taking him off life support. It was late at night. I'd gotten a flight to go visit the next day. Chances were that he'd die sometime between the time I'd been told about the decision to unplug him and my arrival. It's such a small thing. You learn about someone's death, or their impending death, or their fatal sickness, and that moment of learning is just a few words, and yet the words echo. I couldn't handle that echo myself. After I found out my dad would soon be dead, I called my friends. I just started the MFA program, and I didn't know anyone well. I didn't have any close friends yet. But I called those people I knew and asked them to go somewhere with me because I didn't want to go alone. And I didn't want to be alone in my barely furnished apartment. We went to Hooters because it was the only restaurant open in Gainesville at that time of night. I don't remember the food or the drinks or the wait staff or even the people I went to the restaurant with. I just remember trying to escape the overwhelming knowledge that my dad was going to die and would soon be dead. I wanted to lose myself in conversation and laughter, even if we were just laughing at the absurdity of taking part in a wake at Hooters. I never noticed the blackening toes. I couldn't stand to be in the room with my dying but not dead, yet don't give up hope father. The next time I saw my father's body, it would be in a bag of ashes and bone fragments. My brother felt guilty because he and my mom had agreed to remove my dad from life support. He was explaining the guilt to me when he mentioned the blackened toes. I felt guilty because I never cried before my dad died. I didn't cry at his funeral or at the reception afterwards. I didn't cry until I was reading poems about his death to an audience and could barely keep the feelings in. I wonder what that feels like. The thing is, my brother didn't take part in the decision. My mom decided alone to remove my dad from life support. The thing is, who the fuck cares if I cried or not at the funeral? Grief isn't measured by a face wet with tears, although it sometimes can be. The thing is, I didn't know my dad's toes were turning black because his body's circulatory system was shot. It's such a small thing. It doesn't matter. No one would say it matters. It's such a small thing. Thank you.
Keep it going for Anne and that beautiful reading. It's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. So nice. thank you all again for being here. It makes me so happy. This is it's one of truly my favorite things about this city. And I'm so glad you're here. And I have a few more really great 2-sentence stories. This one's a little intense, but I feel like we can go there now. I woke up on the clean, tiled floor and sighed. I then decided to just do the best I could from here on out as I untied the noose from my neck. It's beautiful. I'm going to start with a slightly lighter one to get us into our next story. I watched pimple popping videos with Betsy Brandt. She played Marie on Breaking Bad. It's really just sort of the duality of the human existence there, I think. And I'm glad that whoever wrote that they're here. And I'm glad that whoever wrote the other one, that you got to watch pimple popping videos with celebrity. I have another story for you, and it has one of my favorite titles, so I'm going to save that part for last. It is written by Amanda Bentley. It is read by Sarah, and it is entitled The Naked Pianist. Please welcome Sarah to the stage.
Hello. That's better. I was anxiously Googling things like how to make friends in Houston, what does bless your heart mean, and choking to death alone in your apartment, what to do. I moved to Texas for work about a month ago. Sight unseen, no friends, no family, no coworkers, just me, corporate housing, and the kind of solitude that makes you question all of your life choices. Unfortunately, there's no undo button in life. There is, however, an add to cart button. So I did what I do best. I stuffed my soul-crushing sadness deep down inside and went wild on Amazon Prime. If anything, I hold Jeff Bezos responsible for what happened next. It was definitely not my own choices that led to the downward spiral that unfolded over the next 12 hours. I had been pacing the lobby for almost 10 minutes, waiting for the office manager to finish with a potential resident. If I had known what I'd known now, I would have warned the porn girl. Keep moving, nothing but freaks in this building. Finally, the office manager unenthusiastically asked me, "How can I help you?" "How much time do you have, lady?" I thought. Another thought. I should really start seeing a therapist. She instructed me to hang tight while she went to check for my packages. Hang tight. My blood was already boiling. I'm not a patient person, and you, lady, are the only thing standing between me and the dopamine hit I need to survive. God, I really need therapy. Then I hear a booming voice ask me, "Hey, can you check for me too?" Increasingly annoyed, I turned around to see a large, sweaty man approaching with an empty wagon, which I could only assume was for an abundance of packages. Great, another person delaying my gratification. Now, this guy wasn't exactly GQ material. Soft around the edges, kind of like someone who considers a walk to the fridge as cardio. He was probably a 3, but he had one of those deep, melodic voices that could captivate a room, so I'd give him a 4. He smiled at me and asked if I'd been waiting long, to which I replied, "Yup." We made some awkward small talk while we waited for her to return, and I realized this was the longest conversation I'd had with a human in real life since moving to Texas. He told me his packages were for Sterling, the puppy he was picking up next weekend. He showed me pictures of the little guy, and my heart melted. It was as if, by telling me about his puppy, he had somehow secured beer goggles over my eyes. This man was now a solid 5. The office manager returned with her goodies, and some for Sterling's dad, but most of them were for mine. As she handed me my bounty, she once again instructed me to hang tight, there's more. The 5, aka Sterling's dad, and I seemed to realize at the same time that I couldn't carry everything. He said, "Here, let me help you with that," taking the boxes from my arms and loading them into his cart. As any hyper-independent feminist from the Northeast would say, I said, It's okay, I got it. He cocked his head. I know you're new here, but this is what we call Southern hospitality. Let me help you, he said, loading up the remaining boxes. Considerate with a take charge attitude, this was the fastest I'd seen a 3 catapult to a 6. But here we are. As he wheeled my impulse, we talked about life in Houston, the insufferable heat surely upon us, the rollerblader named Juan Carlos, the bars, the food, and of course, the best tacos in the city. This guy seemed to know the lay of the land, and in the kindest way possible, he looked like he liked to eat. So when I asked him where the best tacos were, I was appalled when he mentioned a cash-only food truck outside an ice house, whatever that was. He laughed, I imagine, in response to the disgusted look on my face. It's not what it sounds like, trust me. If you say so. I realized at the moment I didn't even know this guy's name. This stranger wanted to trust me. I'm Paul, by the way. Amanda, I replied. Amanda, I promise you, these tacos will change your life. What are you doing later? We should go. At this point, what were my options? Sit at home alone, put together a bar cart, likely slam a bottle of wine and cry myself to sleep, like I've done most nights since I've been here? Or hope that sweaty Paul, who now knows exactly where I live, isn't a serial killer and will buy me tacos? Fuck it, I thought. Why not? So we agreed to meet in the lobby and head to West Alabama Ice House, which I wish I hadn't Googled beforehand. It looked like a dumpster fire, as did the taco truck, but strangely both had great reviews. Keep an open mind, Amanda. You live here now. I live here now. Turns out, Paul cleaned up well, drove a sick Jeep, and had some great taste in music. Is this guy a 7, or am I just hungry? We pulled up, and I was immediately impressed. Super chill atmosphere, lots of dogs, string lights, good tunes, bar games, friendly faces, and the smell of tacos. If my nose could salivate, it would. I was drawn to the truck like a moth to flame. We braved the insanely long line, ordered tacos, and nervously crushed a couple beers while we waited. Paul was a big guy and seemed to finish each beer in one fell swoop. I was a little drunk and a lot ravenous when the tacos finally arrived, so I can only imagine what I looked like as I inhaled each bite. Trust me now, he asked. I nodded, mouth too full to speak. We spent the next couple of hours chatting about life, just normal first date stuff. It was innocent enough until he said the one thing that would absolutely unleash the drunken demon inside of me. You want to go to karaoke? Now, sober me would have never sung in public. Hammered me, different girl, different story. Karaoke is the perfect combination for public humiliation and self-expression. And after a couple of drinks, or exactly 8 beers, which is my current running total, it's practically orgasmic. So, did I want to go? You bet your ass I did. But just as we were deciding which songs we'd butcher first, Houston pulled to Houston, and my Yankee ass watched the sky quickly filled with thunder, rain, and lightning like I'd never seen before. Rain check on karaoke, I suggested, nervously watching the storm roll in. You like whiskey? Let's wait out the storm in my place and walk over to JR's. Paul seemed hopeful that the apocalypse would pass, and I was drunk, so it was a better plan than I had. Also, we were both going back to the same apartment building, so it seemed reasonable. And I thought, what's the worst that could happen? Oh, you sweet, innocent fool. His apartment screamed, I'm technically an adult, but my mom picked out every piece of TJ Met artwork. No accent pieces, a couch that looked like it had seen some things, and the general aesthetic of IKEA meets cowboy. It wasn't dirty, but it didn't smell good. And I was in the process of formulating my exit strategy when Paul handed me a glass of whiskey, neat. We cheersed, and I realized I guess I like whiskey. As Paul started queuing up potential karaoke songs, I began inspecting Sterling's new bed and toys. He's gonna love this. How'd you pick the name Sterling? I asked. Paul explained that he's in a band, gesturing to the instruments in his living room. How did I not notice the giant keyboard, a keyboard, before? He said that he learned to play on a Sterling piano and thought the name suited the little guy. Fuck, this guy is a musician. No wonder he wanted to go to karaoke. He's probably good. Oh, hell no. I'm not singing in front of an 8. Can you play something for me, I asked, trying to buy time and figure out how to bail on karaoke. Eager to please, he sat on the piano and began playing something classical. Beautiful, really. I was in shock. I was shook. I didn't take this sweaty, beer and tacos loving bro for a pianist. And then the melody morphed into something familiar. But now I was on my second glass of whiskey and really couldn't place the words. Look at the stars. Look how they shine for you. Oh God, is he seriously singing Coldplay right now? I mean, it sounds amazing, but how pedestrian. He finished his serenade and casually announced, "Okay, you're up." Hard pass, I can't actually sing. It would be too embarrassing. It's just like public speaking. Imagine the audience in their underwear, or don't look at them, you'll be fine. He offered, trying to comfort me. Seriously, how is this 9 managed to sing and play the piano so well? What, after 10 beers and 2 whiskeys? They do it differently in the South, I suppose. The combination of my anxiety and way too much booze came over to me, and so I excused myself to the restroom to get it together. After seeing my reflection in the mirror, I realized I would ask Paul for a rain check. Deep breaths. You got this. I don't got this. Because when I returned, there was Paul sitting completely and unapologetically naked at the piano. I froze in horror, struggling to process the sight in front of me. Paul's doughy frame squished onto the piano bench, fingers moving with shocking dexterity over the keys, while the unmistakable chords of the scientist fill the room. He really loves Coldplay, huh? What's with this guy? What's with this too? Was the bathroom to a portal to an alternate timeline? Did I black out and spend an hour in the bathroom? Am I going to die now? What the actual fuck? I wanted to laugh and cry and press pause so I can understand how I got here. I need that undo button. Paul? I finally managed, trying to sound casual, as if I wasn't standing in the doorway of a naked stranger's living room where the scientist was now the soundtrack to my impending murder. He didn't even flinch. He kept playing, eyes closed, swaying to the music. I play better naked, he said. Agree to disagree. And now you don't have to imagine the audience naked. That logic was kind of sweet. Also misguided and borderline insane. Sweet or not, it was bizarre and creepy, and I needed to get the fuck out of there. I, for once, had no words. But what I did was have time to snap a photo of the naked pianist, grab my shoes, and run out the door. I ran fast. I bolted through the door like I was escaping a haunted house and didn't stop until I was inside safely in my apartment, leaning against the door like I had just escaped death, which I honestly might have. I don't know what happened to Paul, but I do know that I have never voluntarily listened to Coldplay again, and also, fuck Jeff Bezos.
Keep it going for Sarah. That was incredible. That was an incredible read of a delightful story. So you may have noticed I'm sort of posted up over there waiting for the stories to finish so that I can, do my hosting duties. And watching the femme folks in the audience listen to that story as opposed to the masked folks in the audience listen to that story was absolutely incredible. Because the sort of recollection in people's eyes of like, been there, was like really beautiful. I saw a really great moment. It happens to be my friend India. Upon the note of the announcement of the nude pianist, there was a full, and that's just beautiful to see. I love theater. It's incredible. The thing that I can't help thinking about in that story, I went to, by the way, plug for the reading parties. Please go. It's really fun. You get to hear the stories ahead of time. I went to the reading party for this week, and the thing that I can't stop thinking about in that story is what, was it Paul? Was that his name? What Paul did in that final moment when the door closed. Because all I can just think about is the music stopping and him just going, huh. That's what I see in my brain And I have to wonder, is like, did he put on pajamas and then go to bed? Or did he just like, well, already naked? Like, did he just do, oh God, I can't, what a fucking rube. All right, anyway, let's get on to our next story. An incredible story that I also heard last week, and I'm so excited to finally hear read here. And fun fact, the writer and I discovered that we have matching shoes. Fun fact, which is always exciting. I don't care how old you are. At the moment that you realize you're wearing the same thing as somebody, it's always exciting. And if it's not, then you need to look at your life. This story is called The First Fall. It is read by Claire Miklianis, and it is read by Melanie Minetti. The First Fall, read by Melanie Minetti. Please enjoy.
Way down. Huh? Oh. Okay. Great. That's about right. Okay. I'm going to now do this. Okay. I'm short. The First Fall. One more time from the crossover, the ballet assistant barked. It was late, close to 10 p.m. at least, and the official technical rehearsal had already ended. We were headed into overtime, which surely meant more paperwork for the union reps. The Nutcracker season would begin the day after Thanksgiving, in about 40 hours' time, and this woman alone seemed bent on literally driving us into the ground before it had even begun. We took our marks on stage below the stark overhead lights. By now, the lighting and sound crew had packed up for the night. The many remaining company members who were not involved in the scene sat wearily side stage in various warm-up attire. They watched on with deadpan, bordering on annoyed expressions, waiting to be released from work as the clock ticked onward. As far as I was aware, nothing had gone awry in our scene of the Waltz of the Flowers the first time around, yet here we all stood in our flouncy floral ensembles, preparing for our fourth go-round of the Grand Jeté Enternon crossover. This sequence was the exciting crescendo of the scene. 2 by 2, we, the Flower Girls, would run to the opposite front corners of the stage, turn to face one another, then, at the last moment, we would both run with full force toward the center of the stage, careening towards each other as though we were about to collide, the fabric of our romantic tutus grazing. We would then launch ourselves into the air, scissor switch our legs mid-leap, and turn to face the other direction at the apex of the jump. This step is also called a grand jeté entrelacé, similar to interlacing in English, except for that the most important condition is not in fact to interlace your own legs together, or with those of your partner in crossing. Just upon landing, we would pick up speed again and run to the opposite upstage corners. It was a thrilling section for the performers, and the audience, and often induced impromptu applause. Yet, at this late hour, we were all limp and shriveled little flowers. Unfortunately, that meant nothing to this maniacal assistant. Although she was not the ballet mistress by title, she was quite insistent upon making all of us feel as though she was. Her gripe with us was that this section did not look exciting enough to her. "You need to start farther from center," she demanded. "Run faster. Big, long struts. I need you to brush shoulders with your partner," she ordered. And once again, the music began. If I had nothing else as a young dancer, I surely had 3 things: sturdy technique, a good arabesque, and ups, all of which were needed for this choreography. And I was going to make damn sure that I was not the reason for us running this section for the 5th time. When my turn came, I took my place at the farthest mark from center, where this phony mistress had indicated. I delayed my run until the last moment, building upon excitement. Then, quickly, I released and I strode toward center stage. I felt my partner's shoulder momentarily brush with mine, just like this hoe bag had ordered. I then pushed off my supporting leg, launched myself as high as I ever had into the air, split my legs, and pointed my feet more than they had ever been splitted or pointed before. Yet, therein lay my misstep. In my determination, you see, I seemed to have pointed my landing foot for a fraction of a second too long, managing to miss the floor entirely. I felt the box of my point shoe graze the marley floor as my eyes widened with dread. Merd! My mind squeaked, and I plummeted towards the ground like a turkey at lightning speed in a full 5-star frog splash position. I was later informed that a 5-star frog splash is actually a pretty cool wrestling move. Merd, a word used as a wishing of luck for a good performance in the ballet world. A word which harkened back to the time when live animals such as horses appeared in stage performances. Merde, a word for shit in French, was shortened from the phrase, may one not step in it during one's performance. And as I plunged downward, it looked as though I had indeed slipped in a pile of it. I belly flopped onto the black sea of flooring with a thud which was audible through the speakers of the basement dressing rooms, as though someone had dropped my carcass from the stage lighting booms. The music stopped abruptly, our pianist frozen in horror as I lay in shambles, my legs akimbo across the floor. Claire! I heard our legitimate ballet mistress yell from the staff section of the audience. Claire, are you okay? I could hear her running down the aisle of the auditorium towards the stage. She really was such a caring woman. Now, I can't quite recall what possessed me at that precise moment. It could have been the mortification of laying face down, spread eagle, center stage, with my skirt overhead. It could have been the sharp lights of the auditorium beaming down upon my ass, combined with exhaustion. It could have been the fear of discovering all my teeth stuck in the floor like a pair of dentures. But at that moment, all I could think to do was to raise an arm and give a big thumbs up, which in my imagination was actually a feeble fuck you to that so-called assistant. I managed to pry my face off the floor and grin, with all my teeth still yet intact. It was then that I heard a burst of relieved laughter explode and echo through the silent theater. I quickly identified it as one of my very own best company friends. I was later told that her laughter was also heard from the basement dressing room speakers, leaving listeners to wonder what exactly had occurred on stage over the past 7 seconds. Eventually, some fellow dancers came to my aid. They hoisted me up off the floor and helped me hobble to the side stage, where company physical therapists looked me over. I saved my tears for offstage, and I applauded myself for that feat. I was intact, aside from a nasty bruise and swelling already appearing over my left knee and thigh. But best of all, I had managed to officially end this relentless, monotonous rehearsal with one single step. 2 days later, as I passed the smoking lounge of the company studios, a few higher-ranking dancers popped their heads out the door as the smoke began to fill the hall. "Hey, Claire," they greeted me. I acknowledged them sheepishly, still embarrassed from my fall a couple nights ago. "I bet that hurt really bad. But you know, I saw that jump from the audience, and it was really gorgeous," one of them offered. "Yeah, don't let that fall stop you from really going for it, honey, okay?" Another dancer encouraged, her cigarette still burning, as she held it inside the smoking room. I nodded and thanked them shyly. I then made my way to the studio to prepare myself for opening night of my first Nutcracker performance as a professional ballerina. Footnote: ballerinas do wear underpants under their tutus. The end.
Palm of your hand, Manetti. That was incredible. I have never seen a Gust story with blocking before. That was beautiful. Shout out one more time for Miss Manetti. That was magnificent. Oh, love it. How great is it when someone holding a cigarette calls you honey? Just for the record. Isn't that, like, there's something really specific about that that's really delightful that I love in that story. All right, I got 2 more emotional whiplash short stories for you, and then we're going to get to our last 2 stories. Here's the sad one. I canoed out of my backyard when I was 8 years old. The floodwaters would eventually come up to our roof. Round of applause for that story, please. And this, I have to say, is my favorite one because I was present for most of it. I once tried my hand at being a groupie with a musician whose band was staying in my hotel. This was a pretty famous group, and I was confused why the man was wearing a kilt. It wasn't until the morning when I had clearer eyes and ears that I learned his band was a bagpipe tribute band called the Red Hot Chili Pipers. It's an incredible story. I was there. It was special. I got a phone call in the morning. It was fucking great. Anyway, sorry. Quick obligatory host duty. Please give a round of applause for Stephanie behind the bar. If you're not tipping liberally, you're objectively a shitty person. So thank you to Stephanie. Please be kind to her. And please welcome and be kind to our next story. Those of you who are Gust regulars may recognize this as a continuation of the Me Versus series. So Greg Schroeder has written Me Versus Play That Funky Music, and it is being read by Miles McMahon. Please welcome Miles to the stage.
Me versus Play That Funky Music, or That Time I Sang with Prince. I'll tell you right off, I am a giant fan of Prince and have been since he released Soft and Wet in 1978. So you can imagine how excited I was to learn he was playing Warehouse Live here in Houston. What's that? You didn't know Prince played Warehouse Live? He sure did. It was in 2006, March 4th, 2006 to be exact, and the circumstances were this. Prince had a protege named Tamar Davis. Tamar is from Houston. In fact, she went to HSPBA with Beyonce and was in the very first incarnation of Destiny's Child. But instead of entering the entertainment industry out of high school, she went to USC, got a music degree, and along the way she met Prince. He wrote an entire album for her, and in 2006, he put together a 10-city tour focusing on small clubs. His band, The New Power Generation, would back her up, and Prince would be playing the guitar. Houston was the 7th city on the tour, and I'd been keeping up on it through various Prince-related sites. I learned that the shows were about 2 hours long, and since there was only 45 minutes of stuff that Prince had written for Tamar, a lot of covers were played. They covered Aretha Franklin, Percy Sledge, and both Michael and Janet Jackson. They also covered Wild Cherries, Play That Funky Music, and not only that, they'd bring a white guy from the audience on stage to sing it. Hey, I am a white guy. And I know that song. I grew up with that song. When they come to Houston, that white guy is going to be me. I scored 2 tickets for my buddy Music Lewis and myself. For some reason, my wife did not want to come along and watch her husband attempt to keep up with Prince, but I can't blame her. While I might be the second funkiest white man in America, I am nowhere near as cool as our daughter, who'd gotten on stage with Prince twice in 2004. And let me tell you, that little 8-year-old girl had 40,000 people eating out of her hand. Prince loved her. And how many members of one family is Prince going to love? I got it. The doors of Warehouse Live were to open at 10 p.m., so of course we got in line at 7 p.m. And you probably know that Warehouse Live is exactly what it says a warehouse. There's no sitting, there's only standing, and I knew where Prince was going to be on stage, and I was determined to be as close to that spot as possible. And I got that spot. I was prepared to stand right there for the next 4 hours, and I was not about to get drunk or even tipsy. The better to make sure I did my best when I got on stage. But one little drink couldn't hurt, could it? Of course not. So I told the very large man standing next to me that if he would hold my spot, I'd get a drink for him and for his girlfriend. He agreed, and I returned with my one and only drink of the night and 2 drinks for him. 15 minutes later, that very large guy looked down at me and said in an extremely deep voice, "Hey, man, what did you put in my girl's drink? She's been talking to you, and she don't talk to nobody. What did you do?" I told that very large and now very angry man that I hadn't done anything, which of course was true. But he didn't buy that, and he moved them to another area. The last thing I wanted to do was get thrown out of my only chance to sing with Prince because some wacko started pounding on me for no reason at all. The lights went down at midnight, and Prince, Tamar, and the NPG hit the stage. The show was incredible. Prince's guitar playing was off the hook. I'd seen him many times, but that night he was so good that I seriously thought about giving up the guitar. I would never get within 100 miles of how good he was. About an hour into the show, Tamar looked out into the crowd and said, "Are there any white?" And that's as far as she got, because as soon as I heard the word white, I started jumping up and down screaming, I can, to a question not even yet asked. Tamar called me up and ran through the drill. I was going to sing it. No help from anyone else. And I'd better know all the lyrics. The guy from the crowd in Chicago screwed them up, and a word was that he'd been banished from Illinois. No pressure, right? While we're going through all this, I'm hanging on Prince's backup dancers. I'm vamping it up with all my heart. But what's going through my head is this. Oh, what's the first line? Oh, holy blankety blank blank. I can't remember the first line. I'm a dead man. I could remember everything else, but I was resigned to mumbling something like, yeah, da 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 da, until I got to the words I remembered. Prince started off that classic riff, and I'm really sweating on the inside. Just as I'm about to give them the yeah, da 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 da, I hear someone sing, I was a boogie singer playing in a rock and roll band. I never had no problems bringing down the one-night stands. I was saved. But who was my savior? I looked to my right, and there was another guy on stage, but he wasn't white. He was black. And he just jumped up there, seemingly uninvited. I did not care that he'd violated multiple levels of protocol. He had saved my bacon. My new friend and I blew the crowd away. Every time the chorus came around, I'd lean down and hold the microphone out to someone. Well, it was always to a girl, and have her sing the, play that funky music, white boy, play that funky music, right part. And every time I did that, Prince would smile and nod his head like, yeah, brother. That's how you do it. The other thing I wanted to do that night was stage dive. I'd never done that. And I figured I'd never have another chance to do it. So when the song was over, walked to the front of the stage, held my arms out, prepared to dive. Then I looked down, straight down, at that very large man who thought I'd spiked his girlfriend's drink. If I dove, there was no way he would catch me, and there was no way I'd hit that concrete floor and not break some bones. So I retreated, gave Prince a thumbs up, and went back to my spot on the floor. After the show, I tracked down that other guy who was on stage. It turned out he was a super fellow. He's a local musician who runs a facility for homeless veterans and is so much of a Prince fan that he named his son Prince. He's also my best friend, and he has been ever since we met 18 years ago. On stage with Prince. Thanks.
Keep it going for Mr. McMahon. That was incredible. The reader's really exploring the space tonight, which I really love. That's good. All right, we got one more story for you, and I don't want to give it too much preamble because it's one of my favorite stories that I've ever heard. It is written by one of the magnificent producers that you saw on the stage, Amanda Shee. Round of applause for Amanda Shee. And it is read by Chuck Vaughn, who, if you ride a bike in this city, you should know. Chuck Vaughn is just one of the coolest people that I've ever met. And he's about to read this beautiful, beautiful story, A Year with Joe. Please welcome Chuck to the stage.
September 2023. On a cool, crisp fall morning, a refreshing oasis in the lingering Houston heat, I meet Joe Jones. Joe has been painting the window signs at Neighbors, a bar in my neighborhood. He talks about how he drafts his design on paper, makes holes along his lines, and then, holding the design up to the window, he brushes baby powder through the holes. When he removes the paper from the window, he can see his design by the traces of the baby powder. You know who came up with that? Michelangelo. He did it for the Sistine Chapel, he shares. He talks about intent and freehand painting and being a sign painter all over Houston. Way back when what are now decals on trucks would be hand painted with gold leaf applied for flourish. The deep, warm timbre of his voice and melodic cadence of his speech transports me to a more colorful time. He's painted signs downtown, in the Heights, in Montrose, in River Oaks, for big clients and small restaurants, cafes, bars, signs I've used to guide me without knowing the hand behind them. Joe sees my bike and his eyes light up. We talk bikes for a good hour or so. He loves to bike around leisurely, sometimes carting his supplies with him. We talk about the rush of the times of today, the obnoxious, the tiring, incessant drum of capitalism. I'm not ready to leave him, but I am also itching to be on my way. And so I steal a few more moments and then I say goodbye and pedal away. Late November 2023. Nearest, Joe and I are hanging out at Neighbors again. Joe had been gone, unreachable for months. Neeraj and I were not sure why at the time. Later, I'd pieced together the maze of Joe's medical conditions and learned that he had a pretty serious fall and hospital stay. For now, I watched Joe paint a Christmas wreath on the front door. He beckons me closer to show me his tools and colors. I snap some photos of Joe painting. He says he feels like he's reaching a point of recognition just as he's facing old age. Isn't that strange? He muses. It comes time for him to go home. He talks about taking the bus. I insist on driving him back and taking Neeraj with us. Something about Joe's demeanor pulls me in. I can sense that Joe really wants to show us his place and belongings. We follow Joe up a flight of slippery stairs. We enter. Our eyes adjust to the darkness, and we see a crowded world of wonder set up as an artist studio by Joe, for Joe. Foam sculpting tools, drafting tables, his creations and shelves of art books, his bike with a hand-painted sign hung in the frame. Joe Jones, painter and artist. We become something else to you. December 2023. You call me sis. I'm at a loss for words. To gain a brother such as you, I'm incredibly touched. A chosen family. And yet we do have so much shared in our composition. The spirals pedaled by our feet along the bayous, the yearning in our hands for colors and crafts, the twinkle in our eyes whenever we meet young souls. You were not far in time and space, and yet we did not become family until now. Now, when your hands and your muscles are unwiring from your mind. As modern people, we chase time, wish for time travel, long to master time. When I, or anyone really, sit next to you, we sit next to a 78 years of a life hard-lived, well-lived, 78 years that I have a deep window into, 78 years that you so lovingly share. A precious life, my precious brother. You tell me to come sit with you during one of your dialysis appointments. You have me feel the warmth of your blood through the polypropylene tubes. I feel an itch in my nose and an ache in my eyes. Why are you inside out? You shake your head with anger at this mechanical, clinical process called dialysis. How strange a thing it is for the human body to experience. January 2024. Sometimes it feels like I make you do so many things. I put on a brave face and say, Joe, what will we eat today? Knowing full well this is just a game we play, where I put on a show, eating with my outsized appetite, trying through osmosis to infect you to eat more than 3 bites. I become sensitive to the design of places, how you labor to make it to the front door, how you put on a show for me as if to say, see, I'm strong, I'm walking well. Please, sis, don't baby me. You are proud, stubborn, sovereign, like my mom, like me. It's a dance each day. How much you let me help you, how much I let you suffer. It's also senseless. You've already fought so much as a child in your multiple foster homes and then overseas enlisting in the Vietnam War to escape the abuse of your foster mother. And then through your many lives working in restaurants, construction, oil and gas, your idealism clashing with the pains of the human world. Cheating, waste, people with money, numbing their pains, running with scissors. And here you are, fighting the multiple organ failures in your body. Through our routine drives to and from dialysis, I get to know your neighborhood through your eyes. Who has nice flowers in their yard? Where to get the freshest fried seafood? Where to find the tree with the bike grown into the trunk? Where you made friends. The gardener on the corner of Heights and East 14th, the grocers working at the Kroger on West 20th, the goat that once guarded a property behind Connie's on Cavalcade. I discover your quirks, your love and absolute dedication to buying Powerball numbers 2 times a week, your uncontrollable craving for anything sweet and sugary, your love for mischief through your reenactment of Neeraj's fear of cockroaches in his car. Joe, you kill it! We drive by White Oak Bayou often. We both dream of a day when we might bike it together. We never say this wish out loud. The next several months are a blur. You walk up and down your stairs, to and from the car, some days effortless, some days you grimace in pain with each step. We sit in traffic. You catch all my wrong turns and laugh when I duck cops after I get 2 tickets driving with you. We sit outside your apartment talking for hours. We're in and out of the emergency room. We take you to appointments with this specialist and that specialist. You're somehow at least 5 separate ailing body parts to the system. After a CAT scan one day, a technician tells me in earnest, "You're doing a good thing." Am I? I think of all the times I could have done something different, all the times I could have gotten Joe to more extensive care sooner, or could have been firmer with Joe about his appointments, upsetting him and his trust, but extending his life by months, bedbound as he may have been. I am called your caregiver. I am not trained to do this. I am steeped in anxiety. Am I performing some kind of malpractice? I chase after your medical history through the red tape, the disjointed healthcare system, deciphering and decoding technical jargon, insurance claims and bills, so many bills. Every now and then, Joe tells me he's been down before, but he always catches a big break, a second wind. We see this in real time. Each time you seem really broken, each time we think it really might be time for us to convince you to accept hospice, you bounce back with vigor. You oscillate between thoughts of death to dreams of riding a motorcycle again at Galveston Beach. Sometimes I ponder the timing of my entering into his life when he's on his last leg. Am I his Grim Reaper, his Taran here to ferry him to the underworld after collecting a coin? His Zolo dog walking him to his death? Might I see you through just another month? Another week? Another day? October 2024. Suddenly, but not suddenly, it happens. I walk into your shell of a home and find your shell of a body on your kitchen floor. Just like that, you're gone. In the hours and days that follow, we enter into the mechanics of death in America. I make some calls. I watch your body get examined by strangers. More calls, more strangers to put you in a bag. I watch them walk you down your apartment stairs one final time to a van, to a holding place for your body until your time has expired for any living blood relatives to come forward, and they say, okay, it's time to process your body. We begin to work through your apartment, your belongings. In your art, I see your hands. In your supplies, I see your mind, heaps of paper, foam, construction signs, a wealth of materials you collected from wasteful corporate hands. You had grand designs for them, plans to breathe new life into them, all pointing back to our first conversation about capitalism, modernity, neglect, and how to cope, how to find beauty in it all. In your bike bag, I find the seashell. I know you found it on Galveston Beach to keep with you. I take it with me and put it in my bike bag. Mid-October 2024, the dialysis center. You grew to hate this place. I don't know why I came here. I didn't leave my house ever thinking I would come here. Here where you were trapped on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays during the last 5 years of your life. I wish I hadn't brought you to these machines during your last year. I wish I had let you play hooky more. It smells the same. Inside this building, you sat for hours and hours, your blood streaming through miles and miles of foreign plastic path. I wonder, did your blood cells travel more in length in those tubes than you've traveled in your lifetime? Did they travel more than what we've traveled together? More than your hands got to travel over papers and windows, coming alive with your art? I thought I'd gotten to know you, but there's still so many questions I wish I could ask you, like, when did you fall in love with art? How did you come to start sign painting? I leave here, bike home. I know there were many times when you longed to do the same. Late October 2024. I saw your body exit your home in a bag, and now I walk out of a crematory office with your ashes in a box. is disembodying, alien, incomprehensible. Your little family of late caretakers will remember you and tell your stories, share your life. We will take your ashes to places where you wore your heart on your sleeves. Galveston, Las Vegas, Philly, Vietnam, Thailand, and finally, your birthplace, New York City. If you out there have any stories of Joe Jones to share, please reach out. I would not be surprised to hear from many of you, as I know he's made friends everywhere he went. All I can ask for now is for Joe to be remembered. Thank you.
Keep it going for Amanda and Chuck. It's an incredible story. That is our last story for the evening, so I would like to say a series of thank yous. First of all, thank you to all of our writers. Please, a round of applause for all of our writers who are here and abroad. Thank you to all of our readers, everybody who read today. It was incredible. Thank you to Stephanie, our bartender. Thank you, of course, to Emily, Blair, Amanda, and Joe for creating this space for all of us to be in. Gust is a magical, wonderful place, and I am so glad that all of you are here, and I am so honored to have been asked to lead you through this incredible group of stories. So thank you for being here. Please continue to find beautiful spaces of community. Please continue to read. Please continue to listen. Please do all of the things that Gust does for its community. Thank you all for being here. Have a wonderful night. Please make sure you close your tabs. Tip everybody. Thank you all so much. Go next door for some honky tonk if you decide. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.